Okay, so an ESOP is an employee stock ownership
Ownership plan.
program. So it's basically the employees own the firm.
Correct.
Okay, and so you mentioned in the event of death, I'm going through this now. I have a client in Nevada who unfortunately passed away, had a business, and as part of the estate, the probate process, they had to hire somebody to do evaluation for probate and estate. They really don't have a choice; it needs to be done.
Right. And many times for the reason for that is if you and I were partners and I passed away, and my wife or spouse or what have you or significant other had the right of first refusal, but you wanted to buy that person out, you would
Sure.
need a valuation to figure out what that value
Okay.
is.
And how often is it where the seller comes to someone and said, not the seller, I said that wrong. Let me start over. So where a buyer says, look, I'm thinking about buying this business, but I'm not sure what it's worth, they could authorize or pay for an appraisal. Of course, the business owner has to agree, but they could initiate that process too. Is that commonplace or not so much?
Not as common, but it has happened. I've done that quite a few times where a buyer has said, I want to buy it, but what if the buyer and the seller were good friends and they wanted to come to a number that made sense? So you bring in essentially a third arbiter that looks at the numbers and says, here's a fair price. And then the two of them would get together and agree on that number or something similar.
Okay. So in a buy-sell kind of situation, you're going to need an appraisal. In the event of a divorce or death, often going to need an appraisal. That about cover it?
Yeah, there's other reasons, but those are the main ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so with, we've talked about this real estate one because it's the latest one you've worked on. So what will the turnaround be? So from the time that you met with, I think you said it was her, when you met with her to when she'll get the completed full report, how long do you think that'll take? I'm just curious about the timeline.
Depending on how quickly you get the information to me,
Sure.
once we've met and we've determined what direction we're going, it could be anywhere from a couple days to a few weeks because it really depends on the complexity of it, right? And whether or not we have to go back. Maybe sometime I have done a couple valuations where there was equipment that we didn't know what the value was any longer, so we had to get an appraisal of that in order to include that within the business valuation.
Okay. And then just going back to the previous question, the one that we had worked on, we met with a client and friend of mine, Jeff, and I like what Jeff was doing because he has this plan of selling his business, I forget what it was, 5 or 7 years kind of down the line. So he wanted to have a valuation now so that he could begin to track the work that he's doing to get the business ready to be sold, to make it marketable and to enrich the value of the business. That seems kind of unusual and very proactive.
Extremely. At the end of the day, what he's looking to do, part of that was, if you recall, he wanted to know what it was worth today so he could work a little harder over the next 5 to 7 years to grow the business even further.
Correct.
To make that number
And
larger.
he wanted to know the different formulas.
Right.
So that he could make sure that his business plan incorporated that so he can make his business as attractive as possible down the line by kind of working from where he wants to be backwards and figuring out all the things he needs to do to improve the business, what metrics are important.
Right.
That seems really, really smart. But like you said,
It's brilliant, really. I mean, because for the return on his investment for what it takes to purchase and a business valuation, if he does it right over the next 5 or 7 years, his ROI is going to be
yes. So
huge.
hopefully Jeff is listening because Dave literally just said he's brilliant. So you're welcome, Jeff. Anything else you want to add to business valuations?
I think we've hit it all. I mean, at the end of the day, I think in our society where baby boomers are beginning to unfortunately pass away, retire, and think about the next stage of their life, I think this is something that's going to become bigger and bigger as we go forward in the next 5 or 10 years. As the businesses that have grown in our generation are passed on to whomever is next in line, whether it's a family member, a co-worker, a partner, or what have you.
Beautiful. All right. So for listeners that might want to get in touch with you, your website is?
LakeFSLLC.com.
And if you go to the Elliott Wealth Management website, you'll get information about Dave and the work that we do jointly on the financial planning and investment planning side of things. And while you're at the Elliott Wealth website, please subscribe to this podcast. I'd really appreciate that. And if you're not a client of ours already, you could sign up for a complimentary consultation where we could discuss your goals, your objectives, how we could help you win with money, and if appropriate, we could talk about the value of your business, and we could get that done for you too. So thanks so much, Dave. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it as well.
Awesome.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of SagePoint Financial Incorporated and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. No strategy can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Please note, the information being provided is strictly as a courtesy. When you link to any of the websites provided here, you are leaving this website. We make no representation as to the completeness or accuracy of the information provided at these websites, nor is the company liable for any direct or indirect technical or system issues or any consequences arising out of your access to your use of third-party technologies, websites, information, and programs made available through this website. When you access one of these websites, you are leaving our website and assume total responsibility and risk for your use of the websites you are linking to. Securities and advisory services are offered through SagePoint Financial Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC. Insurance services offered through Elliott Wealth Management, LLC, not affiliated with SagePoint.
Simply Financial is part of the Exvadio Podcast Network. You can find Exvadio podcasts at exvadio.com/podcast, the Apple Podcasts app, iTunes Store, iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Stitcher, and wherever you find podcasts. So join us and stay informed and entertained.